Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for our final episode of our EA Shakeup series. I'm Lane Shelton with my co-host Andy Bernard, and to this topic, we're going to talk about, we call it So You're on the Direct List. So what we're going to do here is kind of tell you what the direct list is, what it means. There's actually two direct lists, so we're going to kind of give you the breakdown, and then kind of tell you what we recommend that you do. So without further ado, what is the direct list? So, what was this, about 3 years ago, 4 years ago when they did
Was it that long ago?
It was a while ago. Microsoft decided that they were going to take their top, they call it 500 customers, direct, meaning today in an enterprise agreement, you have a direct relationship with Microsoft if you have an enterprise agreement, but you have a software like a software advisor. That's like what SHI does, and you name that software advisor. Doesn't change your cost. Your cost is still set by Microsoft, but we help you administer your agreement. We help you get the best deal. Blah blah blah. Right? That's how it's been since 2003, I think, when they first took these. Took EA's Direct. What this does though is kind of cuts the SHIs out of the loop, and you basically then work directly with Microsoft in all respects. Microsoft did this, their reasoning for this was it's in line with what most software publishers have, a named account list that they have a direct relationship with. So that is an absolutely true statement. Like most software providers have their direct list. To Microsoft's credit, they lasted 20-something years without one. So, we're not happy about it, but at the same time, can't argue with their logic, right? However, it's one thing if you're a smaller provider having a direct list. It's another entirely when you're Microsoft, because their enterprise agreement is probably one of the biggest, most widely used, and
fairly complex,
and while what we do is often, as the advisors, is often behind the scenes, it adds a lot of value, and it smooths a lot of the rough edges of what you get. So there's going to be some challenges when you move to this direct model. So again, we're not here to cast value judgments, and this is the Andy and Lane show, so our views are our own, but we've been through this now several times. We've had this conversation. We've been through this process with several customers now. So first of all, you're going to be on the list if you're really, really big, and I mean like Bank of America big, Wachovia big. Like you're going to be, you'll be on the list. Microsoft hasn't published a criteria. It's basically their 500, and 500 is just the number that they use to designate the program. But if you're one of Microsoft's most important customers, they want you to have that direct relationship, which comes with some challenges, right? Because one of the things that we provide, is making sure that the answers you get are correct. The licensing is complicated even to Microsoft. And one mistake can cost you millions of dollars. So it's nice to have that, that independent perspective, helping you with reservations and true ups and and all of that in the trenches work. Now will be on your back as the customer, right? And that's going to be, there's going to be a challenge. There's a new, it's going to increase your cost of support, because things that we used to do, we can't do them anymore because we're not your LSP. And when you look at what Microsoft is willing to do, a lot of the stuff that we do isn't on the list of things that they'll do. So that's going to be sort of an unfunded expense. And while they've cut us out of the loop, they haven't given you any extra discounts because of it. So it's not changing the price, even though we've been cut out of the loop. So that to say, it's pretty much, there's two flavors of this. There's what they call the S500, or now it's called MS-EDS, which stands for Microsoft Enterprise Direct Support. And that's pretty much exactly what it is. Your enterprise agreement managed directly by Microsoft.
So they updated the EA enrollment document. I think it was probably like 2 years ago. And they changed the software advisor part of that, and Microsoft listed themselves as being able to be the software advisor. So that's how this came about. So the actual EA contract itself small little language changes like that, but otherwise it's still the EA.
It's still the EA. Yeah. Yep. So really, and we have this really interesting scoring mechanism. We talked about EA versus CSP, but we have a comprehensive sort of, we call it the agreement matrix. And it looks at all the different agreement types, kind of like we did with EA to CSP, but a much more expanded list, to rate and rank how compatible your values are, like what you value is with the various programs. And what we found is the main difference between the EA and like it's all about support, right? Yep. Like that's the only real difference. There is a mechanism whereby you can protest, inclusion on the list. Microsoft won't take you off the list. Occasionally they will like
extend it out
a little bit to give you more time to adjust.
Yeah.
But the challenge there is there's so much more day-to-day work, I think, than even Microsoft realized, that goes into managing these agreements, and mistakes cost a lot of money, right? And we always joke and say, like, if Microsoft's the one giving you all the answers, you can guarantee that they're always going to earmuffs on Microsoft. They're always going to answer the question the most expensive way possible, right? So sometimes it's good. We love Microsoft, but sometimes it's good to have that third party looking over your shoulder to make sure that, that we're looking at the right stuff, that we're looking at the right configuration, that we've looked at all the different options, that you have somebody you can ask the questions you couldn't ask Microsoft. Should we be looking at CrowdStrike instead of Defender? So, hey, with us, you can ask us all of those questions, right? Yep. Or with any LSP. So there's ways to delay this, but if you're big and strategically significant, this is going to happen. There isn't really a way to make it not happen. So it's something that we need to prepare for. The other aspect of this, so that's going to be for, the top 500, right? The other aspect of this is Microsoft created this new platform, this modern commerce platform, which they call the NCE, or the New Commerce Experience.
Yep.
Right. And that's where CSP lives.
Yep.
But Microsoft's brand of CSP, they use their own platform, and they've created their own direct offering in that space called MCAE, right? Microsoft Customer Agreement - Enterprise.
Yep.
And their long-term goal is to phase out the EA entirely. So ultimately everybody will be in this, the new modern platform.
Yep.
And you'll either be MCAE if you're direct with Microsoft, you'll be CSP if you're not, if you're still with a partner. And that's kind of what they've said that publicly. So I'm not saying anything that we don't know. How long that's going to take, we don't know. It's taken a while, but we've seen now customers where sometimes you skip over the part where you do the S500 and you go right to the MCAE. The challenge there is, if you look at the differences between EA and CSP, those are vast differences. Different contract style, different. There's lots of differences between EA and CSP. That's a much weightier decision.
Yeah.
So, if you're a customer of any size, right, you may not have, at some point, you're going to have to make some decisions about what's the right agreement path forward. So our recommendation is, get an early look at it now, especially depending on when your next renewal is. So, if Microsoft comes knocking with one of these direct things, that you know what it is, and you're not scrambling to try to figure it out while you're trying to figure out all the other gajillion things you have to figure out, right? Because ultimately you're going to have to make a choice at some point. Right now it's fairly minimum. It's fairly minimal in terms of the impact, but we have seen them, come to big customers and say, hey, do you want to do MCA? In which case we got to look at the MCA, we got to look at CSP. There's some weighty decisions to make.
Yeah, exactly. And you're going to see from our EA versus CSP, a lot of those same variations when you go MCAE. Right, there's no software assurance, right? You're going to need a companion MPSA or something else, right? So you're going to have to, probably have a lot of different agreements out there where you weren't used to that before.
So. Yeah, so that that can be, that can be a challenge. So you can imagine, to a partner like SHI, we still believe that you need the support that we've provided. So what we've put together is our own sort of offering for when you go on that direct list.
Yep.
We're able to continue to provide you the guidance and support that we've always given you. Obviously, it's going to be structured a little different. It's going to be, it's going to be different. It's not going to be quite the same because it's a different dynamic, right? But we want to make sure that you still have the best of what SHI has to offer, so that you can continue to maintain that support that you're used to. So you're not the one taking on, having to take on all of that additional burden.
Yeah. Kind of a more third party agnostic viewpoint too, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's important. We have kind of a comparison in the deck that kind of goes through really like what you would be giving up in the S500 or MS EDS world. And I think, like you said, support is the big thing, right? That's going to be the difference. The EA program is the same. Do you have the SHI left over? Well, we think there's still, the advantage for you guys to work with us, to have that day-to-day support. So, we have dedicated resources that we align to your account, customized license advice based on really what your terms and conditions are.
Yep.
I've seen some issues on some of these already where customer asked for a quote on SQL licensing. They had all per core licensing and they got SQL standard server cal model, right? Like we've seen reductions in some of the from SA going away rather than the full USL. So like having somebody else to have your back where we can fit in and kind of double check and make sure everything is the way that it should be, right? We can do different things if it's like boot camps. Maybe it's an agreement overview if you're new to the contract, or maybe products, right? It's SQL licensing or Windows Server licensing. A lot of that is complex, especially more honor system type licensing where you don't have that portal that shows you exactly what your usage is. We can go through and do boot camps and get everybody up to speed on what they, should be looking at. If there's a baseline and you have a good understanding of your inventory, and then now you start to understand how to license it too, way easier to track, and let us like help teach you, right? And just making sure that everything then still aligns to your contract agreement and what your terms are.
Make sure you're still getting the best deal.
Are you getting, is the pricing that's locked in what they're quoting you, right? Just things like that. Like you said, there's going to be some challenges because we're not the direct like software advisor to see exactly what your entitlements are, exactly what your reservations are. So we're working through that. Like, can we be added to your M365 admin center as like a VLSC type role? So we could see what reservations are made. Did you select the right one? Did you select the right enrollment number? Pulling entitlement reports, kind of more probably like leaning on the customer to ask Microsoft for those.
Yeah, but the good news is we know how to ask the questions.
Yeah, exactly.
We can be like, okay, go pull this invoice history report with these parameters turned on and hit this button because it breaks if you don't, and get that report. Like, again, where it would take you 100 years to figure out what that, how to ask the question.
How to ask the question.
We're still doing this for a gajillion customers, so we know all the right questions to ask. I say all that to say we did that sort of that kind of commercial for expert support, right? Because customers are asking for it as a way to save money. And this is almost like expert licensing support, right? When Microsoft takes you direct, we go into the third-party support business just like expert support, where that's technical in nature. This is financial in nature, licensing in nature, right? All of the things because the, and the stakes are very high. These enterprise agreements are they're always one of the biggest checks you write all year. And so you want to safeguard that investment. You want to have that second set of eyes. Unfortunately, we'd love it if we could keep doing it for free. But when Microsoft, takes us out of the equation, we still think we need to,
those fees, right?
We still want to be part of the equation because we think that the help that we provide is extremely valuable. But it starts with education. Right. Like our agreement matrix is a great way to sort of kind of acclimate yourself to, okay, should I be on, am I like, what would S500 look like versus MCAE versus CSP? And how would I fit and what's my long-term plan to adapt to this?
Yep.
You know, that's good. And the bigger you are, the harder this is going to be, which means the longer the runway you're going to need. You know, this is definitely a, when we run the scores, the ones that we've done, like, again, the difference between MCA, between MSEDS and the regular EA, the scores aren't that different. It's the value of the support.
Yep.
Like, that's the difference.
Yeah.
But then the difference between like
touch.
S500 and MCAE, it's like night and day. Like, that's a completely different architecture, and something that, you know, that that's going to take a while for most organizations to get their head around. And so we recommend starting there, and, you know, depending on where you are in the cycle, maybe we lodge a protest, maybe we, you know, make a business case for, you know, for a delay, whatever the case may be. It all starts with kind of diving in on, you know, where you're at.
Yeah.
So, you know, again, you're going to look at your server estate, you're going to look at EA versus CSP. You might as well do the whole thing if you think you're going to be on this, you know, on this direct list. It's a good time to take a peek and see what there is to see.
Yeah, exactly. But we have an answer, regardless of what it might be. We have an answer.
Happy to help. So so that's the last episode of our season. Appreciate the time. And if you want to drop us comments or let us know other things that you'd like us to cover, like I said, probably we were debating in terms of like what to do next. Maybe something on the co-pilots. Because there's a lot of co-pilots out there, and
some changes.
Yeah, there's been some changes. So sort of understanding the co-pilot landscape and kind of taking our time going through the various ones and what our customers are saying. We'll always try to bring you the voice of the customer. Like I said, even though, like I said, Expert Support, License Advantage, we're kind of doing a little bit of a commercial for SHI. It's because this is coming up with customers, right? Like, you know, obviously we're trying to stay in business. We like our jobs and we like doing what we're doing. So we're always going to say, hey, we're the best at this, but we're bringing this to you because we're hearing it from our customers. We'll always give you that perspective of, hey, this is happening. So because Copilot's such a hot topic and most of our customers are struggling with, like, what's the end game here? Like, the end game's really expensive. So it might be a good one. The other is those Azure crossovers. You know, how to start to identify where those are going to happen, how to evaluate them, how to make good use cases. That might be another topic as well. So we'll probably do one of those will be next. But if you have ideas or things you want to see from us, we're more than happy to help. So thanks again for watching our series, and we'll see you on the next webinar. Thank you.